Go ahead, Lance.
Oh, hi, Kyle. Can you, first of all, maybe address the Jason Spezza re-signing? And in the bigger picture, what is the deal about trying to make the Leafs harder to play against next season? I know you wanted that to grow organically, but
Sure.
What other steps do you think might be in the cards in terms of reaching that goal?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lance. The Jason Spezza, I'll address him first. At the conclusion of the season, a few weeks after our season ended against Columbus, Jason and I sat down and had a discussion about where he felt he was at, whether he wanted to continue, how he felt about his role with the team. He and I had a great conversation, and he subsequently had a discussion with Sheldon about his role and what was expected of him and what he could expect from Sheldon and myself as we rolled ahead, and seemed like it was just a great fit. I think the image of Jason is he's a veteran. He's a veteran in the mold, more of Roger Dorn, but I view him more as after being with him for a year as more of a Jake Taylor type, to use that analogy. From Major League, in that he's been excellent with our young players, great experience, works his butt off every single day in the facility, and has just been outstanding, and an outstanding addition for us, and someone that I didn't really know a year ago when he came in here, and just his work ethic, his passion for the game, and the fact that he desperately wants to win for obvious reasons, and that he's willing to spend as much time as any young player wants, and helping them work through their start to their career or various challenges in their career, even if they're older players on our team, using his own experiences from his career from junior and long time in the NHL. So we're fortunate to have him and have him around here for another season. And then with regards to making the team hard to play against, I think it goes without saying we would like to be incredibly hard to play against, and yes, some of that does have to happen organically. But as our players continue to mature and grow, and I think the playoffs this year showed a number of teams that have a number of examples of that, of teams doing that with their own guys, sort of altering their mindset and having some setbacks that have forced them to play a different way at times. But also, there's no doubt that it is something that we would like to address through free agency or through trades that come up, and it is a priority of ours.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lance. We'll go with Danielle Emmanuel from Leafs Nation Network. Go ahead, Danielle.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you for doing this. I'm curious to know, what is your setup going to look like for the draft? Typically, there is that energy and the busyness of being on the floor. So what do you anticipate tomorrow is going to feel like?
Reed Mitchell and the staff at MLSE have worked tirelessly. Nick Eaves, Caroline Wright, Mark James, and their staff to create an atmosphere that's safe in terms of everything that's going on in the world. So socially distanced, but also be able to try to have everybody together. So far we've run our meetings all virtually, including these final meetings. Even if we're in the building, everyone in separate offices. Especially as the case loads have continued to rise in Ontario and in Toronto. So we've maintained all of those practices that the Toronto Public Health and the Ontario government have pushed us to. Tomorrow we'll move to operating out of the dressing room, actually, here at Scotiabank Arena. And I think Steve and his staff and our social team will send out some images of that setup for everybody, so they can have an idea of what tomorrow will be like for us. But we're not going to have too many of us here, which will be very, very different. We usually have our whole scouting staff. This season, we only have John Lilly, our director of amateur scouting, who's traveled in from Boston, and everyone else has been on Zoom. So it won't be that different. Fortunately, I think from the experiences I had in Sault Ste. Marie, the draft there was held virtually, so every team was in their own individual market and whatever setup that they had. So it'll be much different than any of the previous, I guess, 6 drafts. It's been 5 or 6 since I've been here now, but fortunate to have some experience like it from the OHL, where you're just kind of all sitting in your own room and you see the picks come in on TV or via the conference call.
And just with the draft traditionally being held in June, how has this extra time served the organization well for decision making and just doing your due diligence when it comes to picks and prospects?
Well, John, really, I you can correct me if I have the exact dates wrong, but I think it was March the 12th that everything shut down. And on the 13th, and by the end of the day on the 12th, I think every hockey league in the world was essentially shut down. And so the next day we had a conference call and led by Reed Mitchell and John Lilly and Dave Morrison and Wes Clark here, and right away sort of pivoted the way that we did our scouting and shifted everything to video and tried to maximize our coverage of every player and get everybody involved in the scouting process, in cross-checking the players and so on and so forth. So I think we have a very deep read on every player, and we've covered a lot of games of them using the resources in terms of video and coverage that we have. So I think in terms of the amount of games we've seen on each player this year would certainly be the best. They're not live viewings, and they are video, which does have some limitations. But in terms of the amount of deep work that's been able to be done on every prospect, I would say this year far surpasses the previous years, and will probably take some of the elements that we've learned this season ahead with us as things hopefully return to normal in the coming months and years.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Danielle.
Thanks, Danielle. We'll move to Mark Masters, TSN. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Kyle, just what's your assessment of how deep this draft is? And if you do hold on to that pick at 15, how quickly that player may end up helping you in the NHL?
I think it seems every year at the draft, everyone says this is a deep draft, but I would say that this year is certainly carries more of that narrative than others. I'm always tentative to kind of brand the drafts at the time, because usually they take 4 or 5 years to get a true read of how many guys are truly going to pan out. And I think this season, Mark, with the amount of time everyone's had to invest in the draft, particularly from March to June, I think there's certainly been a lot more focus and attention on it across everybody in hockey, not just the people working in scouting, but in management, coaches, media, so on and so forth during that pause when there wasn't a whole lot going on in the world. It gave you a chance to kind of do deeper dives on the draft. So I think we are happy with the depth of the draft. It's one of the reasons why we made the trade with Pittsburgh, knowing their pick and to land ourselves at this slot. And we have 11 picks in the draft, so we're excited about it. It's a great opportunity for us with regards to how soon the player that we pick at 15 or 44 can make it into our lineup. I think, for better, for worse, the economics and the way that they've changed in the last number of months are going to put a major focus on development and having younger players that have tremendous talent try to get to the league as soon as possible. It's not to say that we would rush anybody unjustly, but just the fact that I think these players are also in terms of their training and their physical development tend to be, every year it seems they're further and further along. And Nick Robertson's probably the latest example of that with us. And so I never try to limit them. And certainly there's going to be a need, not just here, but all across the league, for talented players on entry-level contracts to be in and contributing. So I don't know how soon that will be, but I would say it's probably going to expedite itself a little bit for all teams, would be my forecast.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. We'll go Kevin McGran, Toronto Star. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for doing this. I've got a couple of questions. One, you guys sort of specific. When it comes to drafting these players and your other young players, how do you go about developing them in a world of where they might not be able to even play hockey in some locations? What are the concern level for like a developmental gap, if you will, for this generation of players? And the second question is very of a generic point of view, not you specific, but where do you see the free agent market going in terms of a flat cap? And would players defer salary, do you think, or defer signing bonuses till later in their thing? But two separate questions, but please, thank you.
Yeah. So the first question is easier to answer. I think, Kevin, like one of the things we've had to accept in the last number of months is we can't, certainly development is going to be different. And we've tried to adapt to that a little bit already by assigning some of our players to different places in Europe, whether it's Igor Korshkov to Lokomotiv or Philip Kral. We've got Christian Rubens, who we've just assigned to a club in Denmark, actually. So we've got a few players that we've assigned, and we've obviously got Philip Hollander in Luleå in the SHL as well. So there's that option for the development in terms of playing actual games. When it comes to some players that are in North America or that have other needs, I think as much as it's disappointing that there aren't games right now, and the health and the situation in terms of the pandemic in the world needs to come first, I think this also presents a tremendous opportunity for a younger player that maybe has some physical and strength limitations to make major gains without having to focus on playing any games at all. You can really focus on your work, strength and conditioning, or on the ice with various different skating coaches or instructors, and really make gains in terms of your strength and your on ice technical ability. Even though I know games are much more fun than the daily work of that going over a long stretch of months. But I think we have to worry about what we can control and do the absolute best to maximize the circumstances that come our way and carry on our development in different ways. But it's been challenging. But the development staff, I think they had a virtual development camp in August with our players, and try to continue to help them as much as we can. With regards to the free agent market, what I would say on that is that, with no interview period here, I really don't know what it's going to look like. And we don't, unlike the previous number of years, we don't really have the big name, much talked about free agents of our own. So I really don't have a great read on what the structures of the contracts are going to look like, and likely won't until Friday. I've seen some of the contracts that have come in over the last number of weeks, and they certainly speak to, I think, what you're alluding to, Kevin, of players trying to backload the contracts a little bit within the rules to try to maybe provide the team some economic relief and to give themselves a better chance of making those dollars when escrow and various other limitations go down. But it's all hard for me to predict how it will look on Friday, Saturday, and into the weekend probably.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll go Jonas Siegel from The Athletic. Go ahead, Jonas.
Hey, Kyle, I'm just wondering if you've gotten anything close as far as moving that first round pick that you talked about earlier.
We've had lots of different discussions on it, but nothing that I would say has been overly close. Things can change at any minute, but there's been lots of discussion. I would classify it as lots of tire kicking, but nothing close as yet that would really compel us to look to move it.
You, Terry Koshin, Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Terry.
Good morning, Kyle. Thanks for doing this. Listen, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the speculation regarding Freddie Anderson and his future with the club. Do you expect him to be in goal for you guys on opening night, barring anything else? And where do you go with that, given his contract status a year from now?
Yeah, well, thanks, Terry. I know where the Fred speculation started and comes from, and rather than address it publicly or be hostile about it, I've just addressed it directly with Fred. So he and I have had many discussions over the last month or so about that. So he knows where we stand directly, and as of this moment, yes, I expect him to be the starting goalie for our team. I was just going to say come October, but whenever we get going here. So that's the way I feel about Fred.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go Luke Fox from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Luke.
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for doing this. I'm curious what you took away from the Tampa Bay Lightning's run in terms of your own club, if it's tweaked or reinforced your vision in terms of roster construction or style of play, or what you may have learned from maybe the final four teams that went deep.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I think there's always things you can learn from, and not even just in hockey, but in all the other sports teams that go a long way in the playoffs and that have very successful seasons. And certainly I think there's a lot that we can learn from Tampa. I also think they're in their situation isn't exactly the same as ours for a number of different reasons. And I'm always tentative. I think that the natural inclination is to always hope to mimic the team that just won and to copy them. But because you see from year to year, it changes in terms of the style of teams that win. If you go to Pittsburgh's 2 championships, then it was Washington and St. Louis, and then Tampa. I think you always want to be continuing to challenge ourselves. Obviously, we've had disappointing ends to our last 4 seasons, and that we haven't won, and that's our goal. I think in the things that you look at in Tampa that certainly stood out to me, and I know there are a lot of the acquisitions that they made during the year. I think Julian is a great general manager and did a great job. They've got a great coach and a great core of players. And there's 2 things I hope that our whole organization takes, and that's number one, they had a major disappointment after essentially a record-setting regular season for them the year prior, and how that affected their mindset more than anything heading into this season in terms of their focus and competitiveness and how they wanted to play, and then how it manifested itself through the regular season as well as the playoffs. Like the fear that you always have, or that I think about a lot, is the fact that I think you're going to hear a lot that our team is going to be judged in the playoffs, which it will. But I think one of the key things that we have done the last number of years is whether it was the start last season or kind of the spell at the end of the 2018-19 season, where we've had bad stretches in the regular season that have cost us being higher up in the standings and giving ourselves a more favorable position going into the standings. This year, of course, that manifested itself in us being in the qualification round and not in the round robin. So I think the key for us that we can learn is that how important the regular season is in our mindset and our focus and our competitiveness every day in the regular season, and about how that regular season serves you in the playoffs. It serves you in your positioning, and then it serves you in the fact that you've built a way to play competitively throughout the whole year that can serve you in the playoffs. And then the other part from Tampa in particular is the fact that I thought, a lot of their best players faced huge questions after the 2019 loss. And I thought their best players from, each and every one of them was spectacular in the playoffs. They were extremely competitive. They produced at a very high level. They responded when the team was down. And as much as there's the focus on the changes around the outside of the roster, which I thought were great moves, I think it was the top end of their roster and how competitive they were and how they dominated from the minute that they got inside the bubble to winning the Stanley Cup that really stood out to me, and I hope that we take from it.
And just to follow up on a different note, can you give us an update on where things stand with your RFAs and if you expect to qualify all of them?
Well, there's quite a few. I guess I'll address the NHL roster ones. In that we're still going through that process, and it's I don't mean to take a cop out on it, but I mean, with so much going on, and I know there are teams now that are releasing which players they've queued out and not, and so our view is that we're going to wait before we do anything before the deadline that we have of Wednesday at 5. And see if other teams are non-queuing players that we think might be improvements for us before we act. So, I think with the time that we have, we're going to use it and make sure that we aren't doing anything preemptively that might restrict us.
Thank you.
I'm going to finish off with 3 questions. Josh Cloak, Mike in Buffalo, and Lance Hornby. So we'll start with Josh Cloak. Josh, go ahead.
Thanks, Steve. Kyle, as you approach free agency and you have the need to kind of manage the cap, what do you think it is that makes Brandon so valuable to your organization?
Oh, Brandon Pridham. I talk to him 600 times a day with different questions, and I think the major benefit that he has is he'll tell me very bluntly when what I'm thinking is crazy and not workable, and just the number of different scenarios that he has planned out, and the way that he's able to forecast contracts, and then I think most importantly for us now, Josh, it's looking ahead at the next number of years. So whatever you do now in terms of adding to your mix is going to also not only impact now, but it's if you look a few years out, and we've got our core guys sort of locked up for this season, but then you get a year out, you have Fred and Zach Hyman. A year beyond that, you have Morgan Riley. So, and if you don't forecast the cap to go up, which the leg formula and new collective bargaining agreement largely prohibits, everything that you do now is going to have a large effect moving out. In the past, you used to be able to project, and we were very conservative with this, a small gains in the cap each season, and that's sort of out the window now. So Brandon, more than any other time, having him being able to forecast where that's going to go, where contracts are going to go, it's a massive, massive value. And I don't know that there's any person that I talk to more in my day to day, and his value to the team and to myself is so incredibly massive because of his knowledge of the cap and knowledge of the rules and ways that we can be creative and make things work. So yeah, I couldn't do without him here, I guess is the easiest way to describe Brandon Pridham.
And a quick follow, if you don't mind, on a different topic. If you keep the 15th pick, is there a specific player or position that you're looking at?
I think, that we've, the last 2 first-round picks we've used on defense. And so that's not to say that we wouldn't use another on D. I think our philosophy has always been, when we get there, because it's not like football or basketball even, where the player is going to make an immediate impact and on your roster and on your positioning. I think the way that we've always approached it is to try to find just to select the best player and not reach for a position, even though there's always, I think, a bit of a pull to do that when you have certain holes on your roster. But because the lag time between draft and making an impact on the NHL roster isn't as quick as it is in some other sports, like where the draft gets as much attention, such as basketball and football. I think just sticking to who we feel is the best available player is the way to help the team best moving ahead.
Thank you. Mike in Buffalo. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Kyle. Hope you're doing well. Quick question about the draft. With the uncertainty of what's going on in the CHL right now because of COVID, we don't know how long the season is going to be, how long, when it's going to start. Will that impact you or potentially other general managers in terms of drafting CHL players, because you have a window of 2 years to get them signed, whereas NCAA players or European players, there's a longer window for evaluation?
Yeah, it's actually not even 2 years now, Mike, because we're going to draft them tomorrow night and Wednesday, and you've already lost 4 of the 23 months that you usually have, and you're not going to. It doesn't seem like we'll get them in for a development camp or to work with our people. So, the runway there certainly is much shorter than it usually is. What I would say is because there's so much uncertainty and so much unknown, I still think we would defer to picking the best players for the group and rolling from there. I think because of the connections we have in the CHL, whether it's Tim Speltz and in his role in Spokane in the Western League, myself with the Sioux, and Jimmy Palafito with Saginaw, and then it's the tie-ins we have in the Quebec League with Real Paymont and others. I think we'd be fairly confident. The teams out there, I think they realize this, and I think they're more than willing to try to work with you, and whatever access you can safely have health-wise to the players, they're more than willing to grant it. And so I don't think it will be a huge deal, other than the fact that the runway is a little bit shorter, and we're going to have to hit the ground running in terms of our education and integrating the players into our development model.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you. And we'll finish up with Lance Hornby from the Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Lance.
Hey, Kyle. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you, Lance.
Sorry. 2 quick things. The comment, please, on the 2 new assistant coaching hirings. And please clarify, if you will, about going back to Ford Center and the use of the off-season facility. We all heard something over the summer that was going to be a little harder for you guys.
Yeah. So I guess I think Steve, you can jump in here. I think is Sheldon doing media on one of the nights coming up?
Yeah, after round 7.
Sure. So I guess I would defer to Sheldon more to speak on the assistants, Lance. But for my view of it, the process that Sheldon really embarked on, and I was a part of, he did a very, very thorough job in his background work on all the assistants that he had. And really, without knowing Manny all too well, he had kind of focused on Manny really from the beginning, once he had done his background work on all these guys, just in terms of his fit on his own experience, the job that he had heard he had been doing in Vancouver, his own career as a player and the style of player he was and what he brought to teams. and then just his own intelligence level and the way that he communicated. So that was what was appealing about Manny. For Sheldon, I'll let him get more into the specifics on it. But we just thought that, with his energy level and his communication and his professionalism, that he was a great fit there for sure. And then with Paul, Sheldon and myself have had a great relationship with Paul going back to, we had AJ, Paul's son, we came into the Sioux and at the end of the 2012-13 season. And I think the thing that Paul brings to the staff is that he's got a ton of experience. He's seen everything in hockey. He's been in a ton of different playoffs and he's won a Stanley Cup. He's won a Jack Adams Trophy. He's had great seasons. He's had disappointing seasons. And I just don't think that anything phases him. And I think that level of calm experience is something that will add a lot, not only to our players and our staff, but to the whole organization, just having that to lean on at all times, and just a certain amount of calm when things maybe don't go as well as we want. So that's that. Then I'll let Sheldon delve more into it in his thought process on both on Wednesday. With regards to Ford Performance Center, we just really are following the guidelines, Lance, of the NHL first, but then also the City of Toronto Public Health, the Government of Ontario, and then our own MLSE guidelines. So the facility has been open for off-ice voluntary workouts, and the protocols are very, very strict in terms of the number of people that can be there, the number of player access people that can be there. But it's really back into the protocols of phase 2. So before the training camp portion of it, and having the guys in there. So there've been a number of players in there already, including a lot of our more veteran top players on our team, which has been great to see. And they're working hard. So it's so far so good.
Thank you.